Hare Krishna, everybody. Welcome. Am I audible?
Hare Krishna, Papu.
Hare
Yeah,
Krishna. Thank you.
clearly, very clearly.
Hare
Nice to
Krishna,
see.
Prabhu.
Nice to see you
Hare
all.
Krishna Prabhu.
So we are ready to continue with the 7th canto study. There's only
Everybody, Hare Krishna Prabhu.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. We have only 3 weeks left before the Sima Chaturdashi. Oh, Krishna Kirtan Prabhu is here. Welcome, Krishna Kirtan Prabhu. A long time.
Hare Krishna, everybody. Dandava pranams.
And,
All the glory, Prabhu. Thank you, Prabhu.
thank you. So let us just quickly summarize. I hope everybody is well. Now let us quickly summarize what we did in the previous class. If you remember, we are listening the conversation between Narada Muni, Maharaj Yudhishthir after the Rajasura sacrifice, where the Shishupal was killed, and everybody saw to the amazement that Shishupal's soul merged into the body of Krishna, and Yudhishthira Maharaj inquired from Narada Muni to explain this. And then the Yudhishthira Maharaj, he explained the history of Jaya and Vijaya and their so-called fall down from Vaikuntha being cursed by folk Maras. And then in the beginning of the second chapter, at the end of the previous chapter, it's described that in Akashibu that both Jaya and Vijaya developed, as Hiranyakashipu developed intense hatred for Lord Vishnu. So Maharaj Yudhishthira, he is asking what is the cause, what is the reason for this? What prompted him to develop such a hate for the Lord? And then at the beginning of this chapter is described that when Hiranyaksha, the younger brother of Hiranyakashipu, was killed, Hiranyakashipu, he became extremely, extremely angry. Just couldn't control his anger. And he began to lament. He was completely filled with rage, was biting his lips, and he then spoke to the demons. He instructed the demons, calling them by their different names, Shambhara, Shtabahu, and so on. And then he said that although Vishnu is equal to all, he still sided with the demigods because he was worshipped by them. And in this way, he has given up his neutrality. So that's why I'm going to behead this diplomatic Vishnu with my trident. So he threatened to kill Vishnu. So meanwhile, until this happens, you please go to earth, you go to Bhumandala and destroy all the brahmanas who engage in yagyas, in austerity, in Vedic study, kill all innocent people. And Lord Vishnu has his roots in activities of these brahmanas, in Dvijas. So if we kill them, he will also be killed. So that was Hiranyakashipu's plan: destruction of brahmanas, which will lead to destruction of yagya and dharma, and that will lead to death of Vishnu. And with the death of Vishnu, demigods will also die because they are maintained by Vishnu. So he told them immediately go and destroy places where the cows and brahmanas and where the Parnashana. You see some noises coming out from Shailesh Prabhu. And then, so the demons started persecuting the citizens, being ordered by their masters, and they enjoyed doing it. So we came to the shloka 14 where we going down to continue. I'll share my screen. 10 to 7. Where I'm here. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Namaskar. Om Gyanatimirandasya Gyanantana Shalaka Chakshu Umyana Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. So I'll read. You please interrupt me anytime you have anything to say, to question, or to comment. So Puragrama Prajodhyana Kshetra Aramsha Makran Ketu Karvata Goshamsha Dadahu Patananicha. The demons set fire to the cities, villages, pasturing grounds, cowpens, gardens, agricultural fields, and natural forests. They burned the hermitages of the saintly persons, the important mines that produced valuable metals, the residential quarters of the agriculturalists. Interesting word, probably is agriculturalists, means the farmers, the mountain villages, and the villages of the cow protectors, the cowherd men. They also burned the government capitals. So they created huge havoc. Purport. The word Udhyana refers to places where trees especially grown to produce fruits and flowers, which are most important for human civilization. Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, Atam pushpam phan thoyam yume bhaktya prayachati tadaham bhakti pahartam ashnami pratatmanaha. If one offers me with love and devotion a leaf, a flower, fruit, or water, I'll accept it. Fruits and flowers are very much pleasing to the Lord. If one wants to please the Supreme Personality of Godhead, he can simply offer fruits and flowers, and the Lord will be pleased to accept them. Our only duty is to please the Supreme Godhead. Sansvir Haritoshanam. Whatever we do and whatever our occupation, our main purpose should be to please the Supreme Lord. All the paraphernalia mentioned in this verse is especially meant for the satisfaction of the Lord, not for the satisfaction of one's senses. The government, indeed, the entire society, should be structured in such a way that everyone can be trained to satisfy the Supreme Personality of Godhead. But unfortunately, especially in this age, Nate vidu svarthagatim hi Vishnu. People do not know that the highest goal of human life is to please Lord Vishnu. On the contrary, like demons, they simply plan to kill Vishnu and be happy for sense gratification. So this is the sad situation in modern days world. Luckily, devotees are present, so there is a hope the situation will improve. And Srila Vishwanath Thakur recommends Pura means towns with markets. So like Jagannath Puri is a Pura, town with the markets. Then Gram means towns without markets or villages. Sometimes Gram is translates village. Raja means places for cows. Udhyana means forest with lots of flowers. Kshetra means fields of grains. Arama means forests with fruits. Ashrama means the houses of sages. Akhara means mines for jewels and minerals. Keta means houses of farmers. Karvata means a village in a valley of a mountain. And Gosha is the house of a cowherd. Patanam is a capital city. So since Sanskrit has so many words denoting different settlements, much more than English. English has what? City, town, village. Is there any other? I don't know. The Sanskrit has whole variety of terms denoting different settlements. Next shloka. Kechit kanitrair bibidu setu prakara gopuran ajivyansh chichi durvriksham kechit harashu panaya Radahan Sharanam Yeke Rajanam Jvalitolmkai. Some of the demons took digging instruments and broke down the bridges, the protective walls, and the gates, gopuras of the cities. Some took axes and began cutting the important trees that produce mango, jackfruit, and the other sources of food. Some of the demons took firebrands and set fire to the residential quarters of the citizens. So demons, they had to use some tools in order to destroy the cities. Previously, you had gates, gopuras, at the entrance of the cities. So they were cutting them with axes. And then Prabhupada here mentions that they were also cutting trees, although I don't think in Sanskrit it's mentioned that mango and jackfruits, just fruit trees there, but Prabhupada is kind of expanding the translation. Purport: the cutting of the trees is generally prohibited. In particular, trees that produce nice fruit for the maintenance of human society should not be cut. In different countries, there are different types of fruit trees. In India, the mango and jackfruit trees are prominent. In other places, there are mango trees, jackfruit trees, coconut trees, and berry trees. Any tree that produces nice fruit for the maintenance of the people should not be cut at all. This is Shastric injunction. So previously, these trees were fruit trees were everywhere, and anybody could just come and pick up. The pilgrims on the roads would just pick up a fruit and in this way survive. Nowadays, I don't think anywhere you can really find a wild fruit tree that doesn't belong to anybody, and you can just go and pick up. Although Mayapur has a lot of mango trees, and sometimes here and there you find some mango tree next to the road that seems not to be on anybody's land, but it must be on somebody's land, although that person might not be really taking care of it. But generally, nowadays, we don't find trees that are ready for public consumption. Evam viprakriti loke daityendranucharair muhu divam deva parityajya bhuvicheru alakshita. Thus disturbed again and again by the unnatural occurrences caused by the followers of Hiranyakashipu, all the people had to cease the activities of Vedic culture. Not receiving the results of yajna, the demigods also became disturbed. They left their residential quarters, the heavenly planets, and unobserved by the demons began wandering on the planet Earth to see the disaster. So they wanted to see what is the reason why they're not getting their offerings, why the yajnas are not being performed. Purport: as stated in Bhagavad Gita, the performance of yajna brings reciprocal good fortune to both the human beings and the demigods. When the performances of yajna were stopped by the disturbance of the demons, the demigods were naturally bereft of the results of yajna and hampered in executing their respective duties. Therefore, they came down to the planet Earth to see how people had become disturbed and to consider what to do. Well, nowadays, also, hardly anybody, there is any yajna apart from devotees doing Sankirtan yajna. But then, because I don't think they are coming to observe because they know this age of Kali. So somehow they're used to survive without the yajnas. Vishnu Thakur, when the people were disturbed, the devatas left heaven because of not receiving their share of sacrifice. So you'll wonder what they're doing during the age of Kali when there are no sacrifices, how they subsist. I don't really know, but they're there and they're still controlling the whatever they're supposed to control.
Prabhu, I had one
Yeah,
question.
yes, ma'am.
So now in verse 15, the translation is that it is said cutting the important trees that produce mango, jackfruit, and other sources of food. What about the sandalwood tree?
What about, can you say again?
What about the sandalwood trees?
Oh, sandalwood trees. Well,
Yeah.
As I know, they
Eh,
don't. Yeah,
when you made a sandalwood incense, you had to use the wood, yeah?
yeah. You need to cut the tree to use
Yeah.
the. I think so. Yeah, you need to cut it to get the sandalwood paste, but it's very expensive. You know, it's a rare tree and it's very expensive, and but it's grown just for this purpose. So yeah, as Prabhupada said, well, that trees should be cut only for propagation of Krishna conscious literature. That's bona fide cutting of the tree. So you can say the production of sandalwood paste that is used for the deities of the Lord is also bona fide use of these trees.
Mm. Okay.
Yeah, I think so. But they use it also for other purposes. There is, I guess, sandalwood industry, and people grow them, then they cut them and they sell them, and sandalwood is in this way they make profit, like any other industry. And it's definitely much less sinful than animal slaughter industries and other sort of horrible industries.
Mm. Okay.
So I don't think the tree cutting is the biggest problem in the age of Kali. When they are killing, children in a womb, and they are killing cows and chickens and millions and billions of innocent animals, tree cutting is nothing.
Mm.
It's
Oh,
relatively less sinful,
yeah.
comparing to killing animals.
Prabhuji,
Yes,
uh,
yes, Mataji.
so Sankirtan Yagya is also Yagya, right? So
Yeah,
that's
that's
still,
yeah.
so I think that will also, like, another thing is,
Yes.
apart from Sankirtan Yagya, there are still some people, I mean, not only in Krishna consciousness, some other people, in Indians, they still do Yagya. Is it bona fide or not?
Yeah, there are still some karmakanda sort of brahmanas who are doing yagyas. Nowadays, it's kind of connected with the astrology business. Astrologers first, they find the dosha in your chart, then they prescribe yagya, and they send you to a brahmana who will do some sort of karma kanda yagya for different planet, for Shani, for Guru, for this planet, for that planet. And if they know how to do it, it works. I mean, it works. But it's karma kanda. It's not it's not bhakti. It's not devotional service. It's manipulating karma, satisfying different devatas. And if it's done properly, it works. Why not? If they know
Not
how
only
to
for
do.
astrological purpose, they also do, no, like for Graha Pravesh or for marriage, and
Yes, this
sometimes
yagis
in the
also.
temples also they do, no, for just for the world peace, and different kinds of yagyas in the temples also they perform periodically.
Yeah, and during these yagas, they worship certain devata. Of course, if devotees do the yagya, they worship Vishnu as the main yagya purusha. But if this is just karmakanda brahmanas, depends whom they worship. If they are, devotee of Shiva or Durga or whomever, Panchupasana, they worship. So it's happening, and mostly in India, you say. Of course, some yaga is also happening wherever there are temples in the world for different purposes. But fire sacrifice is comparatively less powerful than the Sankirtan yaga, which is actually the bona fide yaga for the age of Kali.
Correct. Yes,
So
Prabhuji.
one big Sankirtan yaga counts for thousands of fire sacrifices, and I guess demigods they're also nourished, and pleased by that. So maybe they're pleased. We will need to ask them now what is the situation, how much they receive. Because if the Krishna is pleased, if the Vishnu is pleased, they have naturally to be pleased also, and he is then maintaining them. So we don't need to worship them separately and do yagya for this devata or that devata. If we worship Krishna, it's understood. With all demigods are placed.
Prabhu, just a question. So we know from Shastra, and Prabhupada repeatedly mentions many times in his purports that there is no qualified Brahmins anymore. We're all Sudra by nature in this Kali Yuga. So why do we in ISKCON then carry on doing yagyas when we're effectively know that we're not qualified to do them and it has little value? Why do we carry on doing yagyas? Because we have lots of yagyas in ISKCON as well, don't we?
Yes, somehow the trend became such that yagyas became something very popular. And I think Mayapur Gurukul here, which was under the direction of certain ex-Maharaj, he played a big role in popularizing these yagyas. But as you know, it didn't end up well. That Gurukul is now almost on the verge of closing. There's so many politics around it. I don't want to go into it, but somehow some devotees, they had this conception that this is important part of Vedic culture, and they stress the importance of this yagya, and then it looks impressive, for the temple opening, it looks impressive, or for other purposes, and you make big photos and videos, and everybody is impressed. You post video and photos on social media, and somehow then everybody else wants to do it, although it's not really necessary. Even during the opening of Krishna Bharam Mandir, Prabhupada said that we are doing this only to please the local brahmanas. Otherwise, if it was up to us, we would just do big Harinam Sankirtan Yagya, and the installation of this would be done. But then the local, Brijbasi temple owners, they would not accept us as the bona fide. So that's why we needed to do them for them. And since then, we just continued doing all this sort of yagas and somehow expanded and increased, and it became a trend, and nobody can stop it now. But at least we should have a proper understanding that these yagas are relatively insignificant compared to Sankirtan yaga, and mostly ineffective. It's more or less a show. But yeah, I mean,
because now it's also, I mean, initiation ceremonies are not considered valid unless there's been a fire sacrifice done at the initiation process as well. So I mean, yeah, so were you initiated in front in front of the yagya? But I mean, Prabhupada used to initiate without the yagyas, yeah.
yeah, the yagya is just this, especially for the first Harinam initiation. You don't need it. It's in Gaudiya Mat, they would just give the Harinam, and nobody would do any yagya. Only for the second, they would do some sort of sacrifice. But even without that, the mantra could be given without the yagya, and that's considered good enough. But for some reason, it became popular and trend in ISKCON. But we should know, at least for ourselves, we should have understanding. We cannot change the social dynamics in ISKCON, but at least we should have knowledge about the relative importance of these things, that it's not really much important. But some devotees, they just love doing it. I had one friend, actually there is one devotee here. He's a Western devotee, but he has, big yagyashala, and every day he's doing 1, 2, sometimes 3 yagyas a day. And he's just addicted. I don't want to say addicted, but he loves doing it. It might be from previous life, and there are people like that, and what can you do? If they want to do it, let them do it. And temples use it, for, they can say, for preaching. Now, for during the Sima Chaturdashi here in Mayapur, they are going to do again big yagya in the courtyard for the pleasure of Lord Nrsimhadev. Yeah, you can say Lord Nrsimhadev can be also pleased by this sort of yagya, but of course he'll be more pleased by Sankirtan yagya. So we should not just lose the perspective. Although these things go, as the society is developing, so many people with so many different inclinations are there. So something is there for everybody, but for ourselves, we should decide what is the priority for us, whether fire sacrifices or Sankirtan Yagya. Okay, let us continue. 27. Kashipu Dhatu Samparetasya Dukita Kritva Kato Dakadini Bratri Putran Sanpayat. After performing the ritualistic observances for the death of his brother Hiranyakashipu, being extremely unhappy, tried to pacify his nephews. So his nephews, I guess they were the sons of Hiranyaksha. So even the demons, they did, these ritualistic observances, which includes the yagya. Katodaka means water given to the pretas. The word adi indicates the performance of preta shraddha rites as well. So to do the yagya, one doesn't need to be a devotee. Contrary, one can be even a demon and do fire sacrifices, like in this case. Shakunim Shambaram Drishtim Bhuta Santa Anamvrikam Kalanhabam Mahanabam Harishmashrum Atot Kacham Tanmatharam Ushabhanum Vitimcha Jananim Gira Shmakshnaya Desha Kalagya Idam Aha Janeshwara. O king, Hiranyakashipu was extremely angry, but since he was a great politician, he knew how to act according to the time and situation. With sweet words, he began pacifying his nephews, whose names were Shakuni, Shambara, Drishti, Uta, Santapana, Vrika, Kalanhaba, Mahanaba, Harishmashru, and Utkacha. He also consoled their mother, his sister-in-law, Ushabhanu, as well as his own mother, Diti. He spoke to them all as follows. So Ushabhanu was the wife of Hiranyaksha, the widow, and then his own mother, Diti, was also there, and they were all aggrieved by the death of Hiranyaksha. So now Hiranyakashipu is consoling them. Shri Hiranyakashipu Vacha Ambhamba Evadu Putra Viram Marhata Shochitum Ripur Abhimukhe Shlagya Suranam Vada Ipsitha. Hiranyakashipu said, "My dear mother, sister-in-law and nephews, you should not lament the death of the great hero. For hero's death in front of his enemy is glorious and desirable." Vadu means the wife of his brother.
Can I ask why Sukadeva Goswami has used Sri Hiranyakashipu? Why do you think he's used Sri?
Yeah, it's a kind of honorable Sri Hiranyaka. Well, in the context, he was a respected persons in the assembly where he was speaking. So they were all respecting him. The wife of his brother, his nephews, was the most senior person there apart from his mother. And why else he would use Sri, we can only, speculate, but maybe because, we
Prabhuji,
know
in
he's...
India, even anybody, when we address other people, they say Shriman or Shrimati. Like
Yeah,
for
no, I
men,
understand that. The
they
question
say
was that
Shriman.
Sukadeva Goswami is narrating this, and he knows he hasn't used Sri in any other place, but in this place he's particularly used it. So I was just wondering whether there's any commentary that describes
No, there
Buddha's
is
root.
there is no comment. Let me see the Jiva Goswami, but I don't think he has anything to say here. 20. Okay, a hero's dead on 20 he comments. Yeah, a hero's dead before his enemy is glorious. What to speak of death in for Vishnu? Nothing about the usage of this Shri. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe Shukadev Goswami also is aware that this Hiranyakashipu, in reality, he is gatekeeper of Vaikuntha, and as such, he deserves the title Shri because he is the associate of the Lord who is playing the role of a demon. So why not to call him Shri? Okay.
One more
21.
thing, Prabhuji, Vaduhu means is generally like daughter-in-law, no? In this context, it refers to the wife of his brother, but in general, the Sanskrit term it's used as like for daughter-in-law, isn't it?
Sorry, I couldn't hear. It's usually Vadu is used for what?
Daughter-in-law.
A daughter-in-law.
Yeah.
Uh, well, what about Vidya Vadu Jivanam? We have in where is it in Shikshashtaka? Vadu is also used
Wife, maybe wife.
Yeah, it's the wife. It's one of the bona fide translations of the meanings of Vadu. I guess it's also sister-in-law, but the Vadu also means wife, the wife of the knowledge, you know.
Generally speaking, Vadu in a kul is referred to as sister-in-law. So you can have kul Vadu, and the Vadu, even if he's the elder brother, he will still refer to her as Vadu. So I think the elders will always consider the regardless of relationship as the daughter-in-law of the family. That's how the sort of both Vedic culture and Hindu culture generally refers, I think, to daughter-in-laws.
Yes, there are multiple meanings. So that's why Vishnu Shakti Thakur here clarifies what Vadu means in this context. It's one of the possible meanings. Okay, let us go next. Bhutanam iha samvasa prabhayam eva surate daivenai katranithanam unithanam swakarma bhi. My dear mother, in a restaurant or place for drinking cold water, many travelers abroad together, and after drinking water, they continue to their respective destinations. Similarly, living entities join together in a family, and later, as the result of their own actions, they are led apart to their destinations. Purport. Prakrite kriyamanani gunai karmani sarvashaha ankara vimudatma kartaka manyate. The bewildered soul, under the influence of the three modes of material nature, thinks himself the doer of activities, which are actually carried out by nature. All living entities act exactly according to the directions of Prakriti material nature, because in the material world, we are fully under a higher control. All the living entities in this material world have come here only because they wanted to be equal to Krishna in enjoyment, have thus been sent here to be conditioned by material nature, different degrees. In the material world, the so-called family is a combination of several persons, one whom fulfill the terms of their imprisonment. As a criminal, prisoners scatter as soon as their terms are over and they are released. All of us who have temporarily assembled as family members will continue to our respective destinations. Another example given is that family members are like straws carried together by the waves of a river. Sometimes such straws mix together in whirlpools and later dispersed again by the same waves, they float alone in the water. Although Hiranyakashipu was a demon, he had a Vedic knowledge and understanding. Thus, the advice given to his family members, his sister-in-law, mother, and nephews was quite sound. The demons are considered highly elevated in knowledge, but because they did not use their good intelligence for the service of the Lord, they are called demons. The demigods, however, act very intelligently to satisfy the Supreme Personality of Godhead. This is confirmed in Srimad Bhagavatam as follows. Atapumbir Vidya Shrishta Varnashama Vibhagasha Tanushtitasya Dharmasya Samsidir Haritoshmi. O best among the twice born, it is therefore concluded that the highest perfection one can achieve by discharging his prescribed duties according to caste, divisions, and orders of life is to please the Lord Hari. Become a demigod or to become a godly, whatever one's occupation, one must satisfy the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And Vishwanath, you should rid yourself of lamentation out of separation from relative. It's like living entities coming together at the drinking place and departing. So we all take our families very, very seriously. And it's the nature of family attachment that our family is everything for us. Our father, mother, our children, and we can hardly imagine life without them. But from the vantage point of the eternal spirit soul, we are like just these passengers who gather around some water well for a short while and then we all disperse. It almost, looks, sounds scary when you think about it. But because we are so identified with our present body, our present situation, our present family, we cannot imagine our life without it. But in so many lifetimes, we had so many families, so many fathers and mothers and children, sons and daughters. And where they are now, we don't know. And we don't know who they were. So similar will happen with the present family members. We all have to go, and we cannot remain together. And Hiranyakashipu, he knew the science, but still he was a demon. And he was very much attached to his brother. He's now preaching to them, but actually, if his knowledge was theoretical knowledge, it was not, realized knowledge. If he really had the realization of this Atma Tattva, he would not lament for his brother. He would think, well, my brother has gone to a better place. Why to lament? But he was very much attached to him due to bodily attachment. But now he's using this theoretical knowledge to console his family relatives, although he himself has no realization of it. So this is the danger. When you preach what you have not realized, it will be just words. It will not really convince. It will not convince the listener. If your understanding is only theoretical, understanding should also be, back up with the realization. Then whatever we speak, it will have a powerful effect. Otherwise, it will come to one ear and then go out from another ear. So from the very beginning, we are encouraged to have a realization. Sambandha Gyan, we know the Sambandha Gyan is like a first step to know, the truth about our relationship with the Lord, to know Jiva Tattva, to know Krishna Tattva, Maya Tattva, all these tattvas. But this should not just be a theoretical knowledge, because anybody could, memorize, these tattvas, these concepts, and imbibe them. There are many, university professors and scholars who know very well Sambandha Gyan, who are studying, Jiva Goswami's Sandarbhas, or who are studying Rupa Goswami and know all these high stages of prema in detail. They can describe everything. So you can say, yeah, theoretically they know the Sambandha Gyan. But do they have any realization of it? No, zero realization. That's why, when they teach these things, it has zero effect. It cannot change anybody. It cannot move anybody and convince anybody about anything. So similarly, Hinekashipu is preaching Atma Tattva, but he himself is very much identified with his gross material body and the mind. So that's why his words are not really effective. Okay, next, sloka 22. Nitya Atma Vyaya Shudha Sarvagasara Vikara Dadesar Atmano Lingam Mayaya Isicham Kunan. Just before I continue on now, I just remember that Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, he said that we want Darshan Mai Sambandha Gyan, that this is the real Sambandha Gyan. Darshan Mai means that it's Sambandha Gyan that is based on realization. It's based on experience. Darshan Mai Sambandha Gyan. Only such Sambandha Gyan, Darshan Mai Sambandha Gyan leads to proper practice, leads to Darshan Mai Abhideya, means to Abhideya that will also give realization. And also and only Darshan Mai Abhideya leads to Darshan Mai Prayojana. That was how Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur encouraged his disciples that from the very beginning they should have realization and understanding of these basic truths, that I'm a spirit soul, not just theoretical understanding of Atma Tattva. No, but realization. We need to come to realization. Then our practice, then our abhideya will be fruitful. Otherwise, if our sambandha is just theoretical, our abhideya, our practice, our sadhana will be also just theoretical. It will not give the desired fruit. Anyway, this is big topic. Sometimes we can talk about it more. Now, Nitya Atma Vyaya Shuddha. Okay, I read that. Translation. The spirit soul, the living entity, has no death, for he is eternal and inexhaustible. Being free from material contamination, he can go anywhere in the material or spiritual worlds. He is fully aware and completely different from the material body. But because of being misled by misuse of his slight independence, he is obliged to accept subtle and gross bodies created by the material energy, and thus be subjected to so-called material happiness and distress. Therefore, no one should lament for the passing of the spirit soul from the body. Purport. Nikashipu very intelligently described the position of the soul. The soul is never the body, but is always completely different from the body. Being eternal and inexhaustible, the soul has no death. But when the same pure soul desires to enjoy the material world independently, he is placed under the conditions of material nature and must therefore accept a certain type of body and suffer the pains and pleasures thereof. This also described by Krishna in Bhagavad Gita, Karanam Guna Sangusya Sad Asad Yoni Janmasu. The living entity is born in different families or species of life because of being infected by the modes of material nature. When conditioned by material nature, the living entity must accept a certain type of body, which is offered by nature under direction of the Supreme Lord. Ishvara Sava Bhutanam Hridesha Arjuna Tishtati Brahmayam Sarva Bhutani Yantra Rudhani Mayaya. Supreme Lord is situated in everyone's heart, O Arjuna, and is directing the wanderings of all living entities, proceeded as a machine made of the material energy. The body, just like a machine, and according to living entities' karma, is offered a particular type of machine to move here and there under the control of material nature. This continues until he surrenders to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Mameva ye prapadyanti mayam etam karanti te. Until he surrenders, the conditioned soul is carried from life to life by the arrangement of material nature. This from the common man's viewpoint, not the body. He about his real form is an Atma. Is eternal without death, without decay, without contamination, and all pervading. All pervasion is the quality of the Lord, but because of his demon mentality, he applies this term to the jiva. Sarvagata is all pervading, but the jiva goes to all planets and therefore can be called Sarvagha. He knows everything about happiness and distress. He is different from the subtle body. This Atma accepts his body by ignorance. Maya, why? He accepts the subtle body in order to accept gross bodies, high or low. And then he rejects these gross bodies. Mystijan has both meanings. So he's basically just paraphrasing what Vikashipu wants to say, explaining him more. So Hiranyakashipu is preaching Atma Tattva, the knowledge of the soul that is different from the body. Twenty-three. Yatam Basa Pachalata Taro Pichaliva Chakshusha Ramya Manina Drishyate Chalati Abu. Because of the movements of the water, the trees on the bank of a river, when reflected on the water, seem to move. Similarly, when the eyes move because of some mental derangement, the land appears to move also. Sometimes because of mental derangement, the land appears to be moving. A drunkard, for example, or a person with the heart disease, sometimes feels that the land is moving. Similarly, the reflections of trees in a flowing river also appear to move. These are the actions of Maya. Actually, the living entity does not move. Stanu Achaloyam. The living entity does not take birth or accept death, but because of the transient, subtle, and gross bodies, the living entity appears to move from one place to another or be dead and gone forever. It's a great Bengali Vaishnava poet, Jagadananda Pandit, has said, Pisachi Purle Jena Mati Uchana Hoy, Maya Grasta Jivera Hoyasi Bhavudoy. According to this statement from the Prema Vivarta, when a living entity is conditioned by material nature, he is exactly like a person haunted by ghosts. One should therefore understand the fixed position of the spirit soul and how he is carried away by the waves of material nature to different bodies, different situations under lamentation, hankering. One achieves the success of life and he understands the constitutional position of his self and is undisturbed by the conditions created by material nature. Prakriti kriyamanani unai karmani sarvasha. Vishnu Chandra Thakur, since it accepts the subtle body, the Atma is different from the subtle body. An example is given. The trees reflected in water seem to move because of moving water. The trees do not move since they are different from the water. Similarly, the qualities of the subtle body, ornamentation and illusion, are falsely projected to the Atma. Since the Atma is different from the subtle body, ornamentation and illusion do not belong to the Atma. The attributes of the covering of the soul, subtle body, are projected on the Atma. Having given that example, an example of the qualities of a sense being applied to the object perceived by the sense is given. Because of the rolling eye, the earth appears to move. Earth is caught by the reflective eye, just as a man haunted by ghosts. So the Atma, the soul, is not affected by all these bodily changes and the movements of the mind. But because we are so much identified with the mind, with our false identification, with our ahankara, we are so much affected by our life situations. Here it says drishyate, seen. That reminds me on drig, drishya, vichar. That was one of the main concepts that Srila Bhaktivinoda Saraswati Thakur tried to convey to his disciples. That we are not the subject, we are not drig, we are not drashta, we are not the seer of this world. We are the seen, we are drishya. We are seen by the Lord. So when we think that we are karta, when we think that we are the doer, and we are the seer, that means we are identified with our hankara, with our mind, and we act as a doer and the seer. So this is called kartritva. The karta is the doer. So kartritva is the concept of the doership. As opposed to this concept, there is a concept of sakshitva. Sakshi means the witness. So the Atma, the soul, we have to, in order to to be identified as the soul and to leave our hankara, we need to shift our vantage point from the ego and from the mind to the Atma, to the soul. And then the soul becomes the seer of the activities of the mind, like the mind is the observer of the activities of the senses. When your eyes perceive some object, the eyes are the seer, and the object is the eyes are the subject, and the tanmatras, the objects of the senses, they are the object. But then, in order to really comprehend what we are seeing, the mind is above the eyes. So mind is perceiving what the eyes see. So the mind is the subject. Mind is the perceiver of the and observer of the eyes. But then above the mind and above the ahankara, there is the soul, the Atma. And the Atma is the witness. Atma is the Sakshi. So once we become the Sakshi, the observer of the activities of our mind and the body, will stop identifying with it. And then we'll be able to act from the vantage point of the soul on the spiritual platform. Actually, this is very important because Sanatana Goswami he says in Bhagavata Vicara that pure bhakti can only start once we come to the stage of sakshitva. Once we put ourselves in the position of sakshi, the position of the observer, because only then we are on the platform of the soul, and only then you can actually engage in the devotional service, which is the activity of the soul. As long as we identify with the ahankara, with the mind and the body, whatever activities we do will be just a mechanical action. We are going to the motions, but because of the false identification with the mind and the body, we are not performing Shuddha Bhakti, we're not performing pure devotional service. It's an imitation of pure devotional service. But once our identification is proper, once we identify as the soul, the sakshi, the witness of the activities of the mind and the body, then we are able to engage in pure devotional service. So this is a big topic. So I'm just mentioning it here. So just remember this concept, sakshitva, as opposed to kartritva. Sakshi, the witness, the observer, as opposed to karta, the doer. So we want to be sakshi, to observe the body and the mind, the movements of the body and the mind. And once we put ourselves in that position of sakshi, we'll stop identifying with the body and the mind. And we will not act as a doer. Then we'll identify as the soul. Okay.
Is it also in connection to the devotional service, like when we perform?
Yes, because Brahma Bhuta Prasanatmana Shochati Nam Khankshati Sama Sarveshu Bhuteshu Yad Bhaktim Labate Param. So this is actually the spiritual platform of Brahma Bhuta. Once the transcendentalist, aspiring transcendentalist, comes to this stage when he does not lament anymore or hanker. That means he's now on the platform of the soul. Then Yad Bhaktim Labate, at that stage, at the stage of being identified as the soul, which is your real identity, then you can engage in bhakti, in devotional service proper, in true sense. Before that, as long as we are identified with the body and the mind, although we might be performing externally activities of devotional service, it's not pure bhakti in true sense. We need to be, because the bhakti is the activity of the soul. And if I don't know that I'm the soul, I'm just identified with this body and the mind, I'm just performing some bodily mechanical actions, and whatever I do is like a karma. It's a fruitive activity because I think I'm the doer. That's why it's very important to come to the level of the soul, to perform bhakti from the level of the soul, and that's achieved by practicing this sakshitva, by being a witness of the activities of the body and the mind. Now we are identified with the hankara ego, and we are completely caught in our life situations because ahankara is so strong. But once we place our vantage point above it, place our vantage point to Atma, to the level of the soul, then we will observe, we will be sakshi, we will be witness how the mind activities are going on, how all these thoughts, the vrittis are coming and going, like waves in the ocean. But because our vantage point is higher, we will not be attached to it because we will be on the spiritual platform. And then on that platform, which is technically called Brahma Bhuta, one engages in pure devotional service. Then it becomes very easy, very spontaneous, and very natural. Before that, it's just a struggle because you have wrong self-identification and you are trying to engage in spiritual activity, although your self-identification is still material. So somehow or other, we need to become the platform of Atma, of the soul, to have some realization that we are the soul, not the body. All right, 24.
How do we start applying it? Like, does it happen every second? And like, you have to always.
How to practice? I would say slow down. Because we live in such a fast world, with so many things happening. You have one mobile in one hand, another mobile in another hand, and then we are talking to somebody else. So we are completely caught in this external world of action, and we are completely identified, and we don't even notice how the thoughts are coming and going. So you need to slow down in the external world and to start observing the mind, meaning to become mindful, to become conscious. Oh, I notice how this thought came, how that thought came. Somehow to become a mindful. Actually, they have it in different traditions. Also, this mindfulness practice in Buddhism, in different traditions. Somewhere they call it vipassana meditation. You just observe. You just observe the body. You just observe the mind. And if you're very persistent in that, at certain point, you stop identifying with the mind. You just see that the thought is coming or different emotion is coming, but you're not attached anymore. You're just observing it as a neutral, impartial observer. It's a technique, actually. You can research if you want vipassana, how they do it. There is explanation how they do it, but actually it's also in the Bhagavata. I think in 11th canto, Krishna gives a hint that one has to be the observer, but the practice is not easy. If we are so caught in our daily life, if we are so caught in that we cannot notice how our mind is working. But if we slow down and then become just aware that we are in the body, and then just wait for the next thought to comes, and when then the next thought comes, you catch it. Oh, it came. And as soon as you catch it, it will, disperse, it will disappear. But if you're not mindful, the thought will come and you'll become completely absorbed. It will carry you away. Or strong emotion will come and carry you away. And you'll be completely, absorbed in that thought or emotion. And you will lose the vantage point of the soul. You'll stop being observer. So it's a mental practice to try to observe whatever comes at the entrance of the external senses and the entrance of the mind. And then if you persist in that practice of observation, whatever comes to the gate of the mind, and you just notice it, you don't like it, you don't dislike it, you just observe it and be mindful of it. And in this way, actually, you can get a full control of the mind, and you stop being identified by it. Yeah, this is just in short, but it's easier to say than do. But you can, if you wish, research vipassana. It's called, yeah, vipassana, the just observation, and this is same as sakshitva, which is given by Sanatana Goswami, being a witness, being observer. We are just observing our body, we are observing our mind, and it's necessary in order to not be identified with it. If we are not observing it, naturally our mentality of being the doer will be there, and we will act on a hankara platform. So like that, this is in short how much I can say. It's a huge topic. We can speak all class about it, but yeah, the modern world is not very conducive to this sort of lifestyle, because everything is very fast and you are caught in actions and doing so many things, multitasking at the same times, and it's very difficult, then to observe what is coming at the gate of the mind. It's very difficult to notice because the thoughts are going on very fast. The chitta is very much polluted, by constant verities that are coming, coming, coming. But once you become an observer, then the chitta slows down and becomes more steady. And when the mind and the chitta are, when they become steady, then actually you can chant peacefully without being distracted. And this is the cleansing the mirror of the card. Chitta Darpana Marjana. Chitta becomes cleansed. So Sakshitva is supposed to help this cleansing process. Because you're observing what is coming on your mind, and you're not giving it power to control you. You're just observing it and being conscious of it. Like Prabhupada said, first become conscious, then Krishna conscious. If we are not just conscious what's going on in our mind, how can we control it? You know, anytime, any sort of emotion can come: anger, rage, lust. If we are just exposed to external objects, you know, somebody comes and tells me something, and immediately I react very angrily. That means that I'm not observing. That means that I'm caught by that anger. But if I'm very careful and try to practice this sakshitva, I try to practice this observance of the mind, I'll catch it. I'll catch it when the slight trace of anger starts entering it. And just by observing it, I'll disidentify myself from it. And I will not be controlled by it anymore. And it will disappear very quickly if I'm careful to observe it. To observe whatever comes in the mind and not identify with it. And in this way, you disidentify yourself from the mind. And in this way, actually, you start feeling that you're the spirit soul. This is how actually you come to the vantage point of the soul. Okay, I think
Hare
yeah.
Krishna, Prabhu.
Yes,
Thank you,
Madam.
Prabhu.
What
you.
are you teaching just now? How to practice the mind? It's very true, because this years I have practiced all this procedure. What you say? So the first slow down and observe, and then become conscious of what's in your mind, and then you continue in practicing every day, especially when you do something, when you regret, oh, I'm not doing the right thing. So every time when you observe this, gradually your speed slow down, and then you will become actually conscious of what you are doing. Then you will make a very quick advancement. That is my personal realization.
Very nice, very nice. Thank you. I'm very happy that you're already doing it. So you can teach us all how to do it. And it's something that is very much helpful. And it's also backed up by the Shastra. It's not, you know, some
Yeah.
speculation.
It's very, very helpful, because when you become conscious what you are doing, then sometimes you won't miss what the law give you the hint. Sometimes the law will give you the hint how to do, but it's like a flash. If you don't observe your mind, then you will miss the flash.
Yes, correct.
That means that the instructions the law give to you. So when you observe your mind, and then you will become more consciousness of what the law is going to tell you.
Yes, yes. Then you are more receptive to the Paramatma in your heart, because the mind becomes peaceful, and then you can hear this intuition, they call it, but it's actually super soul in the heart. And then you become actually instrument, and the Lord can use you because you're not the doer anymore. You're a sakshi, you're observer. That means you're conscious. You're conscious. Very nice. I'm happy that you're already doing it. And then devotional service becomes much easier, becomes, you know, more spontaneous, more natural, and more joyous. Otherwise
good.
Otherwise,
I become more blissful than before.
nice. Yeah, the chanting becomes much more focused. You can actually properly hear the name. Otherwise, if you have thousands of thoughts coming in your mind during chanting, you have absolutely zero control out of it, then it's not good chanting. It's not going to give any realization. But by being conscious of these thoughts, they will disperse. They will disperse, and you can just easily and quickly bring the mind back to the holy name. And this is what we want. We want steady mind, steady chitta that is able to focus on the holy name. That this is what is going to cleanse our heart and give us realization. Okay, thank you, Mataji. So let us, thank you. Let us continue. Did I read this translation? Or the forgot? Okay, I read it. In the same way, my gentle mother, when the mind is agitated by the movements of the modes of material nature, the living entity, although freed from all different phases of the subtle and gross bodies, thinks that he has changed from one condition to another. See here, the mind is agitated by the modes, by the movements of the modes. And happens when you are identified with the mind. But once you're not identified anymore with the mind, it cannot be agitated anymore. So purport. Stated in Srimad Bhagavatam, Yasyatma bhudi punapetri dhatuke swadikha thradishu bhauma ijyade yatirtha bhudi salilena karhichit janesh abhigeshu saeva gokaraha. A human being who identifies the body made of three elements as the self, who considers the byproducts of the body to be his kinsman, who considers the land of his birth worshipable, and who goes to a place of pilgrimage simply to bathe rather than to meet man of transcendental knowledge there, is to be considered like a cow or an ass. Although Hiranyakashipu was a great demon, he was not as foolish as the population of the modern world. Hiranyakashipu had a clear knowledge of the spirit soul and the subtle and gross bodies. But now we are so degraded that everyone, including the exalted scientists, philosophers, and other leaders, is under the bodily conception of life, which is condemned in the Shastras. Saiva Gokara. Such persons are nothing but cows and asses. Hiranyakashipu advised his family members that although the gross body of his brother Hiranyaksha was dead, and they were agreed because of this they should not lament for the great soul of Hiranyaksha, who had already attained his next destination. Atma, the spirit soul, is always unchanged. Avikala Puman, we are spirit souls, but then carried away by mental activities, manodharma. So we are carried away by these mental activities. We suffer from so-called material conditions of life. This generally happens to non-devotees. Hara bhaktasya kutu mahadguna, non-devotees may possess exalted material qualities, but because they are foolish, they have no good qualifications. Designations of the conditioned soul in the material worlds are decorations of the dead body. The conditioned soul has no information of the spirit and its exalted existence beyond the effects of the material condition. Vishnu Thakur, the Atma absorbed in the body is controlled by the body and is overcome by the qualities of the body. The Atma is pure, but because like the mind, accepting the qualities of the mind. So the whole point that is that not have the Atma absorb the body and the mind, not to be overcome by this mind changes, by mental, as Prabhupada says, we are carried away by mental activities, manodharma. Sometimes you see people, on the street, they're walking and it looks like they're talking to somebody, but actually they're talking to themselves. Have you seen that? And they don't have any earbuds in their ears, so they're not really, but I've seen quite a few times. That means that they're talking to someone in their mind and they're arguing in their mind and they're, kind of talking. So it's a state of, madness. And we are all sort of in this material world mad because we are carried away by our mental activities. We have zero control what's happening in our mind. This thought comes, that thought comes. Thousands and thousands of varieties of these mental activities come during the day, and they carry us here and carry us there. So somehow or other, we need to stop that. Only then our devotional service will become effective. Only then actually we can engage in Shuddha Bhakti. Once we disidentify ourselves with this mind. Okay, let's see what Jiva Goswami says for 23. Oh, nothing is there. Okay, 25, 26, he has just missed some things. 25 and 26 now. What is the time? 7:20. Yesh Atma Viparyaso Kalingya Linga Bhavana Esha Priya Priyayar Yogo Viyoga Karma Sansmriti Sambhavascha Vinashascha Shokascha Vividasmritaha Avivekascha Chintacha Vivekasmritir Evacha. In his bewildered state, the living entity, accepting the body and mind to be the self, considers some people to be his kinsmen and others to be outsiders. Because of this misconception, he suffers. Indeed, the accumulation of such concocted material ideas is the cause of suffering and so-called happiness in this material world. Conditioned soul, thus situated, must take birth in different species and work in various types of consciousness, thus creating new bodies. This continued material life is called samsara. Birth, death, lamentation, foolishness, and anxiety are due to such material considerations. Thus, we sometimes come to a proper understanding and sometimes fall again to the wrong conception of life. This is long words, no Prabhupada's purpose, but Vishnu Shakti Thakur has something. Though the Atma is not the body, it identifies with it. Linga Bhavana. This is an inversion of the Atma's condition. Because of this reversal, there is a connection with the desired objects and undesired objects, and separation from desired objects and undesired objects. There is a karma in accepting various bodies, sansmriti. Viveka smritir means disappearance of discrimination after it has been present. Okay, so this was just more knowledge of the Atma Tattva. 27. Atrapyudaharan mam itihasam puratanam yamasya preta bandunam samvadam tam nibodhata. In this regard, an example is given in all history. This involves a discourse between Yamaraj and the friends of a dead person. Please hear it attentively. Purport. The word itihasam Puratana means in all history. The Puranas are not chronologically recorded, but the incidents mentioned in the Puranas are actual histories of bygone ages. Srimad Bhagavatam is the Mahapurana, the essence of all the Puranas. The Madhva scholars do not accept the Puranas. Srila Madhvacharya and all other authorities accept them as the authoritative histories of the world. So for us, Srimad Bhagavatam is the topmost Amala Purana, the most important Puranas. In other Sampradayas, Vaishnava Sampradayas, Bhagavatam is just one of the other Puranas. They have also, Vishnu Purana, this Purana, that Purana, and Bhagavatam is one of them. But for us, Bhagavatam is everything. It's the topmost Purana, and we don't really much need or refer to other Puranas because the Bhagavatam is the essence of all Puranas. Vishnu Thakur says this is a story of lamenting for something that does not deserve lamentation. It is the discussion of Yamaraj with the friends of deceased Preta. We see Jiva Goswami, who says something. 27. So he says, Vibhu, all pervading, here means he becomes various forms. Some jivas give up these bodies by the power of the Lord, who should be worshipped as the all-inclusive form. The Lord says, one second, Anadya Vidya Yuktasya Purushasyatma Vedanam Svatuna Sambhavat Anyas Tattva Yogyana Dobhavet. Because a person, whether covered or not covered, by beginningless ignorance, this Anadi Avidya, cannot realize Atma on his own. There must be a separate Supreme Lord who knows and gives knowledge. Yes, so when we are covered completely by this avidya, anadya vidya, we need help for self-realization. We need help of the Lord, and we need help of the devotees. Otherwise, it's impossible. Keep going back. Okay, Ushi Naresh Abud Raja Suyagya it Vishutha Sapatnair Nihato Yude Yatayasta Mupasata. In the state known as Ushinara, there was a celebrated king named Suyagya. When the king was killed in battle by his enemies, his kinsmen sat down around the dead body, began to lament the death of their friend. Okay, now we have a long Sanskrit here that I'm going to skip. I'll just go directly to translation. His golden, bejeweled armor smashed, his ornaments and garlands fallen from their places, his hair scattered and his eyes lustreless. The slain king lay on the battlefield, his entire body smeared with blood, his heart pierced by the arrows of the enemy. When he died, he had wanted to show his prowess, and thus he had bitten his lips, and his teeth remained in their position. His beautiful lotus-like face was now black and covered with the dust from the battlefield. His arms, with his sword and other weapons, were cut and broken. When the queens of the king of Kushina saw their husband lying in that position, they began crying, "O Lord, now that you have been killed, we also have been killed." Repeating these words again and again, they fell down, pounding their breasts at the feet of the dead king. So they were very much affected by the death of their husband. Purport, as stated here, Rabassa Dashtadachadam, the dead king, while fighting in anger, bit his lips to show his prowess, but nonetheless he was killed by providence. Vidina. This proves that we are controlled by higher authorities. Our personal power or endeavor is not always supreme. We must therefore accept the position offered to us by the order of the Supreme. We have zero control when and how we are coming to this body, and zero control when we are going to leave this body. It's just not in our control. It's the control of higher power. But people, they forget it, and they make plans to be happy in this life, in this world. They make so many complicated arrangements, completely neglecting the Atma, the soul, and then death comes quickly and takes away everything. Everything is lost in one moment. And where they are gone, we don't know. The king had bitten his lips in anger while fighting, and the moment he had been hit by the weapon of the enemy, he died in that condition. Rudatya Uchay Daithangri Pankajam Sinchatya Astray Kucha Kunkum Marunai Visrasta Keshabharana Shuchamrinam Trijantya Akradhanaya Vidayapired. As the queens loudly cried, their tears glided down their breasts, becoming reddened like kumkuma powder, and fell upon the lotus feet of their husband. Their hair became disarrayed, their ornaments fell, and in a way that evoked sympathy from the hearts of others, the queens began lamenting their husband's death. So it's very sad scene. So everybody who sees them, you feel some empathy because there's so much distress. The husband is dead. So what do you want? You naturally want to console them. I mean, even when Lord Krishna he killed Kamsa, Kamsa's wife, they were very much, also affected and lamented, and Krishna was the nephew. He was, connected to them. So he felt it's his duty to try to console them, although he was the one who killed Kamsa. All right, next slok. What is the time center? Aho vidatra karunenina na prabhu bhavam pranito drik agocharam dasham Ushinaranam asivritida pura kripto dunayena shuchamivardana. O Lord, you have now been removed by cruel providence to a state beyond our sight. You had previously sustained the livelihood of the inhabitants of Kushinara, and thus they were happy, but your condition now is the cause of their unhappiness. They lament. You have been taken by providence, which has made you now increase the lamentation of population. Well, that was in the bygone times when the citizens loved their rulers and leaders. Nowadays, when some president would die, many would be actually happy with a reason, of course. But when the Kshatriya kings were good and they were taking care of the citizens, they were very much affected by their death because he was like a father who was taking care of them, maintaining them. There was a natural love between the ruler and the subjects, which nowadays is just not there. Tyaja krita gena vayam mahipate katham vina syama suhrithaminate tatranuyanam tava vira padayo shushrushatinam vishayatra yasyasi. O king, O hero, you were a very grateful husband and the most sincere friend of all of us. How shall we exist without you? O hero, whatever you are going, wherever you are going, please direct us there so that we may follow in your footsteps and engage again in your service. Let us go along with you. Formerly, the Kshatriya king was generally the husband of many wives, and after the death of the king, especially in the battlefield, all the queens would agree to accept Sahamarana, dying with a husband who was their life. When Pandu Maharaj, the father of the Pandavas, died, his two wives, namely the mother of Yudhishthir, Bhima, and Arjuna, and the mother of Nakul and Sahadev, were both ready to die in the fire with their husband. Later, after a compromise was arranged, Kunti stayed alive to care for the little children, and the other wife, Madri, was allowed to die with her husband. This system of Sahamarana continued in India even until the time of British rule, but later it was discouraged, since the attitude of wives gradually changed with the advancement of Kali Yuga. The system of Sahamarana was practically being abolished. Nevertheless, within the past 50 years, I have seen the wife of a medical practitioner voluntarily accept death immediately when her husband died. Both the husband and wife were taken in procession in the mourning cart. Such intense love of chaste wife for her husband is a special case. So Prabhupada has seen in his life, that means it was probably somewhere in the first half of 20th century, so around 100 years ago, still there was such a chaste wife who felt such a strong separation from her husband that uh, the fire of separation was stronger than the actual fire. So she decided to go with him. Uh, of course, there were also misuse of this sati ritual that in some instances, the wife that really didn't feel such separation was forced to go under the fire. And that was one of the reasons for abolishment of the custom. And of course, nowadays, I don't think any wife would even think of it. It's a part of Vedic culture that is lost, and I'm not sure whether it will be revived in this Kali Yuga, or we'll have to wait for next Sati Yuga for that. So 35. Evam vilapatinam vai parigrihyamritam patim anichatinam nirharam arkustam sanyavartata. The time was appropriate for the body to be burned, but the queens, not allowing it to be taken away, continued lamenting for the dead body, which they kept in their laps. In the meantime, the sun completed its movements for setting in the west. According to the Vedic system, if a person dies, what happened? Something happened. I'm not sure what happened. Oh, okay. According to the Vedic system, if a person dies during the daytime, it is customary for his funeral ceremony to be performed before the sun sets, regardless of whether he is burned or buried. If he dies at night, the funeral must be completed before the next sunrise. Apparently, the queens continue lamenting for the dead body, the lump of matter, and would not allow it to be taken away for burning. This illustrates the strong grip of illusion among foolish persons who consider the body the self. Women are generally considered less intelligent. This is one unpopular statement here again. Because of ignorance, only the queens thought of the dead body as their husband, and somehow or other thought that if the body were kept, their husband would remain with them. Such a conception of the self is certainly for Gokara cows and asses. We have actually seen that sometimes when a cow's calf has died, the milkman just cheats the cow by presenting before her the dead body of her calf. Thus the cow, who would not otherwise allow milking, licks the dead body of the calf and allows herself to be milked. This substantiates the description of the Shastra that the foolish man in the bodily concept of life is like a cow. Not only do foolish men and women consider the body the self, but we have seen the dead body of so-called yogi was kept for days by his disciples, who thought that their guru was in samadhi. When the composition began, and bad smell unfortunately began to overwhelm the yogic power, the disciples allowed the dead body, the so-called yogi, to be burned. Thus, the bodily concept of life is extremely strong among foolish persons, or compared to cows and asses. Nowadays, great scientists are trying to freeze dead bodies so that in the future, these frozen bodies may again be brought to life. I think this is still some company is offering this freezing like in Prabhupada's time to freeze you, and you pay a lot of money, hundreds of thousands of dollars to be frozen. And then they promise you once the Amrita of immortality is discovered, they will revive you. These were very foolish persons. Incident narrated by Hiranyakashipu was a history must have taken place millions of years ago, because Hiranyakashipu lived millions of years ago and was even then quoting from history. Thus, the incident occurred before Hiranyakashipu's lifetime, but the same ignorance in the bodily concept of life is still prevalent, not only among laymen, but even among scientists who think they will be able to revive frozen corpses. They think, or they may not take, but they will take the money for freezing. Apparently, the queens did not want to deliver the dead body for burning because they were afraid of dying with the dead body of their husband. If you remember in Krishna Lila, when Satyajit, the father of Satyabhama, when he was killed by Shatadhanva, I think Shatadhanva was the killer. Krishna was out to Dwaraka. I think he was in Indraprastha. And Shatadhanva, he just beheaded him. And when Satyabhama saw that, she very much lamented, but preserved the body of her father in the oil. She put him in the vat of oil, and then sent a message for Lord Krishna to come back quickly from Indraprastha to perform the ceremony. So apparently also in the oil, for some time you can preserve the body. And also, what about this pyramids and Egyptian pharaohs. They were what mummified. They call it how do you call it? Mummified. They've also done some technique with herbs and oil in order to try to preserve the body, but not much was left. But actually, I read, I forgot her name, one Christian nun, Christian nun. I think it was end of the 19th or beginning of the 20th century. Somehow she was very saintly lady, and for some reason she passed away, and they buried her under the ground. And then some decades later, they dig her up for some reason, and the body was completely untouched. There are testimonies actually of the witnesses, and everything was written down. Because she was so saintly, the body was completely uncorrupted. And some scientists, they did some research to try to find out something. So they were kind of trying to dissect the body, but the body was fresh as it was buried yesterday. So they buried it again, and then again 20 years later, they again dig it up, and still it was completely uncorrupted. So these are some of the kind of mysteries, but it is possible for the body that is completely spiritualized during the lifetime of a person, that by the mystic power of the Lord, that remains not decomposed. But it's a very, very rare cases.
Like Ramanujacharya's also body.
Yeah, Ramanujacharya also, his body is completely covered by sandalwood, and we cannot see it, but it's because it's a thick layer of sandalwood. Actually, there is a video that I forgot the name. I can find it out, and you can actually see how she looks like when they dig her up. If you're interested to see it, I can post in a group. Now in Madrid, we have actually the other group, Bhagavad Dharma. Probably you're not there. You and Krishna Kita, you might not be there. So please just scroll up in Bhagavad Vicara group. There is a link for Bhagavad Dharma group where I post some things and documents that I don't post in this Bhagavad Vicara group. So it's called Bhagavad Dharma group,
okay.
and there is an invitation link there. You can just join that Bhagavad Dharma group. Mostly we communicate in that group. All right, 35, 36. Okay, we have 15 minutes more left. 8 o'clock will stop. Tatraha preta bandhunam ashritya paridevitam ahatan bhalako bhutva yama swayam upagata. Translation. By the queens were lamenting for the dead body of the king, the loud cries were heard, even from the abode of Yamaraj. Assuming the body of a boy, Yamaraj personally approached the relatives of the dead body and advised them as follows. Does this remind you of some other similar incident in the Bhagavatam where somebody was heavily affected by the passing away? If you remember the story of King Chitraketu and his wife, where when their son was poisoned by other queens, they were also very, very much lamenting that Narada Muni and Parvati Muni, they had to come and console them. So in this case, here Yamaraj had to go and console the queens. Purport. Sometimes the living entity is forced to give up his body and enter another one according to the judgment of Yamaraj. It is difficult, however, for the conditioned soul to enter another body unless the present dead body is annihilated through cremation or some other means. The living being has attachment for the present body and does not want to enter another, and thus, in the interim, he remains a ghost. So here, if between two bodies, oh, just 1 second, I have to switch on my battery. So if the living body is, for some reason, doesn't want to accept another body, he has to be to accept the body of the ghost in the meanwhile. And then sometimes people, they do shraddha for their relatives in case he is still in subtle body in order to get the gross body. The living body has attachment for the present body and does not want to enter another, and thus in the interim he remains a ghost. The living being who has already left his body has been pious. Yamaraj, just to give him relief, will give him another body. Since the living being in the body of the king had some attachment to his body, he was hovering as a ghost, and therefore Yamaraj's special consideration approached the lamenting relatives to instruct them personally. Yamaraj approached them as a child, because a child is not restricted but is granted entrance anywhere, even in the place of a king. Besides this, the child was speaking philosophy. People are very much interested in hearing philosophy when it's spoken by a child. So that's why in Vedic culture, the bodies are generally burned because if people have attachment to the body and the body is still present and it's just buried in some graveyard, the ghost can hover for many days or months without accepting the new body. So that's why the cremation is the best process. And generally, the graveyards, they are considered to be full of ghosts because there are many entities who are too attached to their bodies that somehow they are not accepting the new body. Mr. Thakur, Yama is a personal event. Some say that generally Yama comes personally for pious persons and takes them to his city after their bodies are burned. Some explain that among the women, a few were devotees, so Yama's servants could not approach. Thus Yama himself came to take the body from them. Yamaraj took the form of a boy because others could not enter such a form, because a child speaking is very sweet, and because a boy speaking philosophy would be astonishing and would inspire them to take up the instructions. Generally, young boys, they're very innocent, and then if they start speaking, high philosophy, everybody is astonished. Like Advaita Acharya's son Achyutananda, when he was just 5 years old, he spoke such wise words that everybody was thinking that he must be very, very special soul, and he was. Actually, when he asked Advaita Acharya at one point, who is Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's guru, and when Bhagavata Vicara told him, well, his guru is Ishwarapuri. Achyutananda, he said, wow, what an ignorance. How can you say this? He is the Lord of the universe, the master of everybody and guru of everybody. And you say Ishwarapuri is his guru. You say that he has a guru, although he's Adi Guru. And then when Advaita Acharya heard words of his young boy who was, still naked, 5 years old naked boy. He was so happy, and he put Achyutananda on his shoulders and he danced because he understood my son is a great devotee. At such a young age, he had such a high understanding of Lord Chaitanya's position. So it's very rare to see amongst young children. And sometimes when you see it, that means this is a very special soul from previous life who was born as this child. Okay, I think we have time for one more. Or maybe let me just check if Jiva Goswami says something on this. 36. No, he only continues at 46. Okay, just one more. Shriyama Uvacha Aho Amisham Vayasadikanam Vipashitam Loka Vidim Vimuha Yatragatas Tatragatam Manushyam Swayam Sadharma Api Shochan Yapartham. Sri Maharaj said, alas, how amazing it is. These persons who are older than me have full experience, and hundreds and thousands of living entities have taken birth and died. Thus, they should understand that they also are apt to die, but still they are bewildered. The conditioned soul comes from an unknown place and returns after that to that same unknown place. There is no exception to this rule, which is conducted by material nature. Knowing this, why do they uselessly lament? This reminds me a little bit about that Mahabharata question: what is the most amazing thing in the world? When the Yaksha asked Maharaj Yudhishthira, replied that, just paraphrasing, that the most amazing, wonderful thing is that although everybody sees that their father, mother, and everybody else has died, they think they will live forever and they'll still behave like they will live forever. The Lord says in Bhagavad Gita, Avyaktadini Bhutani, Vyakta Madhyani Bharata, Avyaktani Dhanani Eva, Tatraka Paridevana. All created beings are unmanifest in the beginning, manifest in the interim state, and unmanifest again when they are annihilated. So what need is there for lamentation? Accepting that there are two classes of philosophers, one believing in the existence of the soul and other not believing in its existence. There is no cause for lamentation in either case. Non-believers in the existence of the soul are called atheists by followers of Vedic wisdom. Yet even if for argument's sake we accept the atheistic theory, there is still no cause for lamentation. Apart from the separate existence of the soul, the material elements remain unmanifested before creation. From the subtle state of unmanifestation comes manifestation, just as from ether, air is generated, from air, fire is generated, from fire, water is generated, and from water, earth becomes manifested. From the earth, many varieties of manifestations take place. For example, a big skyscraper is manifested from the earth. When it is dismantled, the manifestation becomes again unmanifested and remains as atoms in the ultimate stage. The law of conservation of energy remains, but in the course of time things are manifested and unmanifested, so that is the difference. Then what cause is there for lamentation in either manifestation or unmanifestation? Somehow or other, even in the unmanifested stage, things are not lost. Both at the beginning, at the end, all elements remain unmanifested, and this does not make any real material difference. If you accept Vedic conclusion stated in the Bhagavad Gita, Antavanta ime deha, that these material bodies are perishable in due course of time, itasok sharirina, but that the soul is eternal, then we must remember always that the body is like a dress. Therefore, Vala meant the changing of a dress. The material body has no factual existence in relation to the eternal soul. It is something like a dream. In a dream, we may think of flying in the sky or sitting on a chariot as a king. But when we wake up, we can see that we are neither in the sky or seated on a chariot. The Vedic wisdom encourages self-realization on the basis of the non-existence of the material body. Therefore, in either case, whether one believes in the existence of the soul or one does not believe in the existence of the soul, there is no cause for lamentation for loss of the body. In the Mahabharata, it is said, Adarshanat ihayata punarschadarshanam gatha. This statement could support the theory of the atheistic scientists that a child in the womb of the mother has no life, but is simply a lump of matter. To follow this theory, if the lump of matter is aborted by surgical operation, no life is killed. The body of a child is like a tumor, and if tumor is operated upon and thrown away, no sin is involved. The same argument could be put forward in regard to the king and his queens. The body of the king was manifested from unmanifested source, and again it became unmanifested from manifestation. Since the manifestation exists only in the middle, between the 2 points of unmanifestation, why should one cry for the body manifested in the interim? And Vishal Chakravarti Thakur recommends yatra means from the unknown state, and it is said in Gita, it was the same verse as Prabhupada. Living entities are invisible in the beginning, manifest in the middle, and invisible at the end. What is there to lament in this? So we came to the end. There are these examples of, although the person is dead, in the battle of demigods and demons, Shukracharya had the ability to revive the dead bodies. He had the Amrita that could, revive those who died, but only provided that their bodies were still intact. If the body was cut to pieces, even Shukracharya could not revive the dead body. And also we have another example of when Mother Devaki, Krishna's mother, asked Krishna to bring her sons back that were killed by Kamsa. Krishna went, and although their bodies were already destroyed, he brought them back again in the baby bodies, in a similar way as he did for the wife of his guru, Sandipani Muni. So mystic power can do many things and even revive the dead body, but this is very rarely done. And generally, it's not according to the law of nature. So that's why the Lord himself rarely wants to break that law. Anyway, we'll stop here. If you have any last comment or question, otherwise we can
I have a
stop
quick
here.
question.
Yes, Prabhu.
So when children under the age of 5 leave their body, Vedically, we don't cremate them, we bury them. That's because they're considered still pure up to the age of 5. But presumably the soul is a soul. The soul has. I'm just not sure why there is a differentiation, because the soul is eternal, and quite the problem is that what it does, it still creates an attachment, because if there's a body that's been buried, the parents will still be attached to that child's epitaph and still go and visit it in shock. So, do you know what the purpose is in terms of burying a child as opposed to cremating a child?
Yeah, I don't know what the roots are behind this custom. It could be just a custom, but you can say, yeah, the baby is still innocent. I actually had one friend just a few years ago here in Mayapur. It was 8 months old baby that passed away, and they did bury it next to Ganga somewhere. Although it was not really allowed. It's kind of illegal, to bury the body anywhere. But they wanted to follow that custom. But I don't think there is any harm of burning even the small body of the baby, and it's probably even better. Maybe because the baby is still so small, and the identity, the ego, the hankara is not yet strongly formed. So there is no danger of that jiva becoming so much attached to his new body, as a person who lived in a body for 50 or 60 or 80 years can be attached to their body, because they had a much longer time to form their attachment and their hankara. The child below 5 years is, still very much unconscious of their body or of themselves. So there is no much danger of forming that attachment. So then there is I guess, also no harm of burying the body. There is no harm that the soul will be attached to that body and will not go to the next body. So that could be one advantage. Yeah, I don't know much about that, Prabhu, so this is all I can speculate about. Maybe somebody else knows. The Arnauli Matus maybe knows something about that, that custom.
No, Prabhuji, I don't know.
Yeah, hopefully we don't see many children dying at that young age. It's actually not something normal. It's not natural. And when it happens, it could be because of breaking some of the laws of dharma by the parents. Of course, it's a karma of the child, you can say also, but parents also did something wrong to be so grief stricken by such young child dying. Actually, this friend, he was astrologer, and I speculate that because before, previously to that baby's death, he was doing a lot of charts to many persons. So my kind of feeling was that he got some karma. 300 persons, if you do charts for 300 people, and you give them advice and do charts and this and that, you get karma for that. And then after that, what happened? The baby died, and also they had a divorce after that later. So this was for me kind of warning that one should not mess up with the karma to this astrology and yagyas, which is trying to manipulate the karma in a karma kanda way. Because karma is not destroyed in this way; it's just transferred. And sometimes the one who does the yagya, like a priest or astrologer, they also get part of that karma. They're also responsible. Okay, is there anything else on this or anything else? If not, let's stop here. Thank you all very much. Good night and see you next Wednesday. Hare Krishna.
Hare
Thank you,
Krishna,
Prabhu.
thank you very
you.
much, Prabhu.
Prabhuji, I just I was just doing the Google check. It says a
Yes.
child whose teeth have not come is to be buried using the Pranava mantra Om. But for the one whose teeth have come, Vyavriti ceremony may be done.
Mm-hmm.
That's what it says.
Okay.
There may be other answers. They say under the age of 2 years.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know.
Interesting.
I'm
Yeah,
just
interesting.
yeah,
So yeah,
Prabhuji.
so we hope that we don't need ever to deal with such a case, but it's good to know. Thank you.
Hmm.
Good
Hare
night,
Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare
Hare Krishna.
Yeah, please subscribe to that Bhagavad Dharma group. You'll find the link there at Nale Mataji.
Hare
Yeah,
Krishna.
I already joined.
Okay, Hare Krishna.
Right.